Japanese new wave bad boy.
Responsible for some of Japan's most stylish and downright insane action movies of the 60s.
One of the most underrated directors in all of Asian cinema.
His wild vision inspired filmmakers across the globe.
Fired from the studio.
Blacklisted for 10 years.
Branded to kill.
The well-known cult film.
Considered his masterpiece.
The pinnacle of his fantasmagoric 60s Yakuza movies.
それは一番なんか人生での大変な経験ですからね。
He was a B-movie director for Nikkatsu, known at that time for the Yakuza movies.
Many of the films of the 60s he made were intended as B-movies. Nikkatsu then, in its own theatre circuit, routinely released double bills. So there was an A feature and a B feature.
いわゆるプログラムピクチャーというのは、プログラムを埋めるために
Nikkatsu's schedule had them releasing 2 new films every single week.
They even had a template of a certain number of days for prep, 20-day shooting, 3-day post-production, get the stuff out there.
He was handed these terrible potboiler garbage scripts, which you can tell when you're watching the movie he has no interest in.
その与えられる台本自体がそんなに芸術的であるわけはないし、
俳優さんを中心に脚本ができてね。その脚本が監督に降りてくるわけでしょ。俳優さんをうまく撮るっていうのかな。人気が出るように撮らなきゃいけないんですよ。
Take Tokyo Drifter. By Suzuki's own account, the marching orders were blunt.
渡哲也をスターにしろという命令だったわけです。で、セット入りましたら、この人がセリフが出ないんですね。
A lot of these movies were made to sell pop songs.
That was in fact the case with Victory Is Mine, his first feature for Nikkatsu. The studio was so impressed with Suzuki, they kept him busy. Yakuza films were his bread and butter, and with films like Underworld Beauty, Suzuki gave them exactly what they needed. 25 Suzuki movies were released in the 7 years between his feature debut and breakthrough work in 1963.
Suzuki made the transition from B features to A features with Youth of the Beast. Actually was screened as a B movie and held over as the A movie the following week in the theatres because it was far more popular than the A movies had been on with.
It was a turning point in Suzuki's style.
This was the rebel film Japanese cinema needed, dropping right as the industry was boiling over. Koriyoshi Kurihara had already shaken up noir with The Warped Ones and Black Sun, but where his films had teeth, Suzuki brought style, and he did it in pop art color.
He was reprimanded by the studio heads to stick to the script and play it straight. Too late.
His appeal exploded after Youth of the Beast. He kept making Yakuza films, but now they were bolder, grittier, and raw. One of the boldest, Gate of Flesh, was a hyper-stylized film about prostitution in post-war Japan.
A lot of the actresses who had a contract with the company didn't want to do it because of the nudity, so he had to get people outside of the movie studios.
Despite Suzuki's growing audience, the studio saw a problem.
As the 60s went on, his films got wilder and wilder.
Nikkatsu president Kusaku Hori told him he was going too far. Suzuki thought he wasn't going far enough, and his next film, Carmen from Kawachi, was even wilder with sex. Fed up, Nikkatsu cut the director's budget. Even with less money, Suzuki's next film was his most revered.
Tokyo Drifter, absolutely dazzling. The colors are incredible.
Every image you see, every still has this poppy graphic quality.
You'd be hard-pressed to find somebody with a better visual sense.
今度の映画の図柄っていうのか絵柄っていうのはどうしようかっていうところから始まってますからね。ワンカットワンカット違った方が楽しいでしょ。
The visual exuberance of his movies is a reaction to restriction.
All the slashed budget did was reduce the number of fight scenes. Filling that gap was plenty of clever camera work for strange stalking scenes and executions.
もう散々な会社ではなんですかね。酷評でしてね。
The studio bosses, having tried to rein him in, were so angry with Tokyo Drifter. And as punishment, they cut his budget and said, your next film is going to be in black and white.
The black and white film was Branded to Kill.
Suzuki was slowly let go from Nikkatsu. Nikkatsu was in trouble with its release schedule, and at very short notice he made Branded to Kill, which was really rustled up to fill this gap in the company's schedule to help them out of a hole, but for which he was subsequently punished.
Part of that punishment would have been that this film was made even tighter than the 25 days that was normally allotted for shooting, basically edited and post-produced and the sound too, in about a day.
Which happened to be the day before its release.
Branded to Kill seemed like a standard Yakuza film, but the way it's staged is
wildly anarchic and absurdist throughout, riffing on noir tropes.
Really pushing boundaries, both in terms of violence and way more in terms of sex.
And there's repetitive visual themes of like the butterfly, the visual motif Suzuki goes back to again and again. You also get unbelievably gorgeous cinematography.
The tone of the film is so wacky.
the studio really did not like what Suzuki was doing with it.
What the f is that supposed to mean?
They thought this is new wave gone too far. Too strange, too out there, too abstract. Nobody is gonna understand this film.
You're done.
Nikkatsu president Kiyosaki Hori fired Suzuki.
結局解雇された向こう側の理由っていうのはわからない映画、それから儲からない映画を作る監督だっていうのが向こうの理由でした。
Hori called the film incomprehensible.
The president didn't like him, didn't like the fact that the movie didn't really make any money.
Hori withdrew the film from distribution as soon as the initial play dates were over.
Its screenings were sparsely attended.
本当はもっとなんか堂々と真正面に撮ればいいんですけどね。そういうことはできない。それは気持ちが悪いし。
But Suzuki wasn't Nikkatsu's biggest problem. Nikkatsu was already bleeding money.
The company was seriously in debt. They tried to cover it up. 1.8 billion yen in debt at the time, and they were really restructuring. The president was really kind of using Suzuki as the scapegoat.
First, he was told no assignments were going to come his way, so he just sat at home waiting. After about 6 months, he got the notification that his salary was going to be discontinued. And that's when he began a long process of legal action.
これが上がってすぐ裁判になりましたからね。
結局なんで裁判をしたかっていうと、口はばたい言い方だけども、男の誇りが許さないと。会社の依頼になって、はいそうですかっていうんじゃ、ちょっと江戸っ子の恥になると。
自分を偽って生きていくなんてことは俺にはできない。
He eventually won.
Suzuki was awarded only a fraction of the settlement he hoped for.
But he did receive a public apology from Ori, who was forced to retract his disparaging comments.
Sadly, this sorry came in a little too late.
Branded to Kill pushed Seijun Suzuki out of directing for a whole decade.
He was blacklisted throughout the 1970s by every studio in Japan.
歯向かったんだからね、映画は撮れないと思いましたよ。
Every interview, Seijun Suzuki downplays his role as an artist.
He has tended to be dismissive of overly serious interpretations, especially the Nikkatsu work, and say he didn't really put any thought into it, he just thought it would be interesting.
それは進化したとは思いませんけどね。それからそれで、いわゆる殺しの楽園が、だから意図しないのにそういうふうになった。
When in fact, he was very actively working with a number of independent filmmakers, even at Nikkatsu, who were rewriting screenplays for him to make them more what he wanted to make. That's part of what got him in trouble with the studio, that he was kind of actively courting sort of a burgeoning cinephile audience.
At the time he was fired by Nikkatsu, it was the students who supported him.
お払い箱と、それから日活がフィルムを市民があるシネクラブって市民団体がこっちの映画をやろうとしたのを日活が貸し出さなかったわけで、それに対して今度はねそういうグループが立ち上がったわけですよ。
After his blacklisting, Suzuki returned to directing 10 years later with A Tale of Sorrow and Sadness, but regained his groove with Zigunervisen, the first in his legendary Taisho trilogy.
It took the Japanese critics completely by storm in 1980.
From the supernatural to comedy, Suzuki dabbled in everything. Even anime was given a shot. Lupin III was already an anime icon by the 1980s. Suzuki added his own touch to that franchise with Legend of the Gold of Babylon. It was chaotic, stylish, convoluted. But yeah, that sounds like the guy who made Branded to Kill.
Danger is my middle name.
Taking over after Hayao Miyazaki's Lupin wouldn't have been easy, but Suzuki's instinct was never to play it safe.
He also returned to the film that got him blacklisted in the first place, Branded to Kill, with a sequel in 2001 named Pistol Opera.
Nikkatsu's films in the 60s were getting released in Hong Kong at the time. So quite a few filmmakers from the 80s and 90s, John Woo, Johnny To, Wong Kar-wai, were watching his films and have all cited them as influences. Suzuki's rebellious style inspired the bonkers films of Takeshi Kitano.
Perhaps at the end of the day, he has the last laugh because
Branded to Kill definitely has gained cult status and found a resurgence in 1980s repertoire theaters in America and home video craze of VHS in the 80s, which I'm sure is where the Jarmushes and the Tarantinos of the world were first running across this film.
A lot of American filmmakers were directly inspired by Suzuki.
He helped define the modern day action movie.
Tokyo Drifter and Branded to Kill were sort of the pinnacle of his fantasmagoric 60s Yakuza movies.
Suzuki made gunfights feel like Yakuza just dancing with guns.
This is the original gun fu. John Wick didn't create it, guys. I'm sorry.
Jim Jarmusch specifically thanked Suzuki and Branded to Kill in the credits for Ghost Dog Way of the Samurai.
That wild drainpipe scene in the film, he straight up lifted it from Branded to Kill. What the fuck? Even this scene is a homage to Suzuki's iconic butterfly on the rifle shot. The film the studio tried to bury was eventually donated to the National Film Archive of Japan.
And some of Suzuki's greatest works live on in the Criterion Collection, alongside Kurosawa and Ozu. That's not just validation, that's legacy. Guess sometimes bungling your job is your best shot at cool.